Hi everyone. So today on Boss Banter, we have Bernardo, who is a real estate agent and actual managing director and a coach out in California. He manages two Keller Williams offices and he also has a coaching program. So thanks for being on the show today, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit more about managing the offices, your coaching program, just really whatever you want to start with?
Absolutely. So I've been doing real estate for about 20 years, and I've been running Keller Williams offices since about 2016. I run the Keller Williams on the west side in Los Angeles, which is one of their bigger offices, and literally in the thick of it when it comes to real estate. I have all the big brands around me, which is always fun. And then I'm the managing director, team leader out in West LA, but I'm the managing director of the Bakersfield office as well. And we're the only Keller Williams out there. So that's also a lot of fun. So I manage both of those offices. It's right around over 300 agents total. And we also have coaching and training programs that go with that. I have my own online training program called it's called 0 to 6 figures in your first 6 to 12 months, but it's the realestatecoachingclub.com is the main site. And I basically have an online solution to help agents that can't be a part of our office, because one of the things that I've done in my 20 years in real estate is that I realized that there's actually a science to real estate, and most agents, regardless of market, can make 6 figures in their first 6 to 12 months. And so when somebody joins my office, that's the number one thing I help them with, because if you ever talk to an agent and you say, what would you like to do in the next 12 months? They're like, I'd like to make 6 figures. And so we put together that program, and it's a very, very robust program, and it usually gets people to their goal as long as they put in the effort and put in the work.
Okay, you said it's how what was the number again? I'm sorry, like 0 to 1 million or
0 to 6
six
figures.
figures. Okay,
Yep.
0 to 6 figures is what I thought.
Yep.
Okay. So that is an online program. You don't do any like in-person
So I do
mentoring?
in person. So
Hmm.
I try to get as many people involved as possible, just because one of my goals in real estate is to help as many people as I possibly can. And, everybody in the world is not going to be able to be a part of my office. So I have the in-person coaching if you're a part of my office. And then I have the online portion. If someone wants to do one-on-one, like let's say they live in Florida or they live in Atlanta, they want to do a one-on-one, I have a solution for that as well. I just haven't advertised that.
Gotcha. So it's just something they maybe happen to find or contact you directly, or something that could be a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, and one of the things that I have a huge problem with the coaching world, because if you go to any real estate coach that's out there, they're going to charge you a monthly fee for like months and months and months. But the problem I have is that none of them are held accountable to their to your results. So like you're going to pay them $1,000 a month for 12 months, and regardless of what you do, they're still going to get their money. So I try to charge just a small one-time fee. And then what happens is the program continues to grow and they have lifetime access to it. So my thing is about helping more than making tons of money off of the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, there's many coaching companies out there, but if I would say your route seems very nice if it's successful that way, because not everybody can afford all of those fees and everything for sure.
And you know what? I'm not trying to throw shade on other coaches, because one of the things that I tell agents is like all coaching works. All coaching
Hmm.
works. And it's just like you have to just kind of keep in the mindset of what your expectation level is, and realize what you're buying into.
Yeah, it's just, whatever works best for them, and what people need to just do the research and see what they think they can afford and benefit the most from. So, you said you've been in real estate for 20 years. So, what made you want to get into doing real estate?
I actually, when I grew up in Las Vegas, I was actually in the military when I was in Las Vegas, and I was a police officer in Las Vegas. And in 1999, when I was a police officer, I ended up getting married, and my wife wanted to move to California because that's where she was from, and she wanted to have kids and she wanted to do all that stuff. And she was like, "Hey, the family will help us with the kids." They don't help with the kids. So I was like, that's fine. I'll test for LAPD. And I tested for LAPD and actually walked through the testing. It was really easy compared to Las Vegas. And after I was done waiting for my acceptance letter to the academy, I was like, I'm a very pro. So like I have a superhero complex. Like I want to help everybody, and that's not really the job of a cop.
Mm-hmm.
So I was afraid people in LA were going to be crazy enough to where I was just going to shoot people, and I didn't want to do that. So I decided that I was going to go to school. I got a degree in computers, and I was just trying to kind of find myself for the most part. And at one point, I'm working at this computer job, and I started watching real estate shows, and I watched, I read my first book that I not my first book that I ever read, but my first like entrepreneurial book I ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Actually, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
I have
You know,
it. I think I've seen
uh,
that one.
and it really got me thinking about real estate. And I always wanted. I have this huge growth mindset. Like I always want to grow. I always want to become better. I always want to do more. And so I started watching real estate shows and all of that stuff. And I figured I actually graduated with an Associate of Science degree in computer networking in 1 year. And I figured that, I did that. So like I should just be able to take a crash course on the weekend to get my real estate license. And so took the crash course and I failed my first exam. I love telling that story because it proves that like anybody can do real estate. um, Ended up getting my real estate license and I just kind of fell in love with it. And I did some amazing things at the beginning of my career that kind of led to where I'm at today.
Yeah, I saw that you also, I was just kind of looking at your LinkedIn. You worked with audio and production for a little while too.
Where?
You worked in like the audio and production industry. Is that correct?
Um, I did. When I was younger, I did DJing and I had my own DJ company when I was in high school. So I had a
Oh,
company
in high school? That's
in high
awesome.
school. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have friends who do that now. We're in our mid-20s. But anyway, I saw that. I thought it was interesting on your LinkedIn. Yeah, so police officer to real estate, that's a really big switch. So you said you wanted to help people more. So how do you feel like real estate helps you help people more so?
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to real estate that's out there. Like if you just look at today's media on how they report on everything, there's just a lot of misinformation. So one of the big things that I talk to agents about is that like if you turn on the news, they're going to talk about interest rates, they're going to talk about the Fed rate and all these different things, and nobody clarifies what that means, and they give it way too much weight. Because how many times have you gone into a car dealership and been like, I'm only buying the car if it's a 3% interest rate. It has to be 3%. If it's not 3%, I'm walking. Like most people go in to buy a car and they're like, no, I can afford 550 a month, or I can afford 400 a month, and that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
And when the media talks about interest rates and all these different things that go along with interest rates, there's not a lot of explanation on what all that means. So the public hears interest rate, and that becomes a buzzword. And most of the time, people ask me, like, I want to buy or sell, but I want to make sure I get a 6%. And I go, do you even know what that means? And they're like, no. And I'm like, do you know how much you can afford a month? Because that's the real question.
Hmm.
Because most people are going to go after mortgages and they're not going to get the best rate because of debt to income ratios, because of all these other things that they just haven't been educated with. So there's just a lot of misinformation when it comes out there. And I think that the real estate industry has one of the lowest bars for getting a license that is out there in the professional world. Like to be a lawyer, you need to go through the bar and you need to go through all these years of training, and the same with the doctor and all these things. But yet we as real estate agents can make way more money. So I feel like me helping people is like I'm constantly trying to spread the word on education and helping, help people become more knowledgeable, because there are so many people out there that are renting right now. And there's nothing wrong with renting. Like they all have its value, but there's a lot of people out there renting right now that they could be building wealth by owning real estate. They don't even have to live in what they own. They can still rent, but they can go out and buy real estate. But there's just not a lot of education out there. And so many agents are just looking for a dollar that they're not helping agents. They're just trying to get paid.
Okay. Yeah, I know people use it who are good with money and investing also use real estate as passive income because especially if they live in a big touristy town, Savannah is one of them. We are definitely booming at the moment as far as just having Airbnbs and different condos and stuff like that because of it being just up and coming a little bit more than it used to be. So I know people who rent their house and then they own a big house in like Midtown or something. They like are trying to pay one off right now. So yeah, and they don't even live in it.
I tell people all the time that if I could go back in time and look at the first piece of real estate that I ever wanted to buy, and from that moment bought everything that I was ever interested in, buy every piece of real estate that I could find, regardless of location, regardless of price, regardless of condition, regardless of anything, just buy everything. Today, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would probably be on my private plane somewhere else because real estate is such a good value proposition and builds wealth so quickly that most people will talk themselves out of buying something when it doesn't really matter what all those factors are, that if you just buy it and you hold on to it. Now, if you're flipping houses, that's a different conversation. But if you buy it and hold on to it, it's going to grow.
Hmm.
And today, I think, is more powerful because you do have Airbnb, you do have a lot of rentals out there. You do have a massive amount of home shortages. Like the builders are just not building homes. And if they started building homes at twice the rate that they used to build homes, we still wouldn't catch up for like 5 to 10 years. So it's such a great thing to buy real estate right now that the education on how to do it is just not out there.
Right. So when did how old were you when you bought your first real estate, property?
Oh, I was probably around 30.
30? Okay.
Yeah. And I looked and wanted to for years and years and years and years. And I think there's this loop that we talk ourselves out of because
Hmm.
there's risk involved in anything you buy.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
always risk. And I think that we always talk ourselves out of things. And that's what I'm trying to help people with, because a lot of people right now, they have 3% mortgages and they're not moving. And so a lot of agents are like, the listing inventory across the United States is super low because most people have 3% mortgage. But if you look at the amount of equity that is being held in the United States in mortgages, it's insane. I think it's in the trillions of dollars, and we have more equity in the United States than we've ever had. So what do you do with that? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to talk to my agents to say, listen, go talk to your people that have a 3% mortgage, that have $200,000 down. Like if they could take that $200,000 and go buy property, they're going to exponentially grow their net worth. And it's the best place to put it, because like in California, there are some places in the United States where property values are dropping, like 100%. So don't go there. But like in Los Angeles, like in the worst areas, some of the property values are still increasing by 5% year over year. And if you take those numbers equal to anything else, like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, anything, you cannot put your money anyplace better than in real estate. It's just that most agents and most sellers don't know how that works. And it's really not super complicated. You just have to have the conversation and show someone the path.
Yeah. So are a lot of people moving out of LA or California in general? Have you
Yeah.
noticed that?
Yeah, I think more people are moving out of California than any place else. And I think it's a combination of different factors. I think it's a combination of politics, because our politics out here are just insane. The people
Hmm.
who run this state are like just they're insane. It's I don't know how anybody can do business in California. And I think people are at a point to where they can get more for their home than they ever have been able to get. And they're looking at it as an opportunity to cash out. And they can almost, I mean, they could go to what's the average price point in Georgia right now? Like it's around 400.
I believe, depending on the area and how
Yeah.
nice the house is, it's definitely spiked our real estate because a lot of people are moving from California to here, New York to here, a lot of the big metro areas because land is
Well, in
cheaper
my
down here.
office, my average price point in my office is 1.5 million. So,
Yeah.
and that is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,700 square foot on the west side. I have condos going for millions of dollars. So people are seeing that opportunity. They're cashing out. They're moving to places that are just more economically friendly. Like there's great places in Texas that a lot of people are moving
Hmm.
to. I know I have friends that have moved to like Arkansas and they've gotten some. Now the winters out there, I don't know about all that, but they found great fields out there. I have friends in Georgia as well, and Florida. Like there's just so many amazing places to live besides California. And if you have a whole bunch of cash, you don't know if that, like, it takes one earthquake to make it all go away. So people have been cashing out and moving. And I think statistically, they've said that we've had a bigger exodus from California in the last number of years than we've ever seen.
Wow. Yeah. Well, between, yeah, the fire, earthquakes, and all of that. I mean, it's, and then the politics, like you said, and then the growing like homelessness and some of the other things going on, definitely like becoming more appealing to move. I know Texas is one of the big ones too, because the real estate is not as, it's a little bit more economically friendly, I think.
I heard Dallas is great. I mean, I
Hmm.
heard Dallas is great, and I have a friend that lives in Dallas that says Austin is the new East California. And I
Yeah.
know prices in Austin have gone up quite a bit, but it is a different atmosphere, and I think politically it's a lot easier for some people to swallow.
Yeah, definitely. So you got into real estate to help people, you said. So what would you say is your favorite part about being in a director position?
So my number one thing in life in general, in all aspects of my life, is growth. So I want to grow, and the only way I grow is by helping other people grow. So that's one of the reasons I put my coaching program together. That's the one reason I'm helping grow our office. I broke the recruiting record when it comes to growing this specific real estate office, and I've done that in other offices I've been at. But my big thing is showing agents the path on how to get to what their goal is, like six figures. And if you want to get to six figures, how do you get to seven figures? How do you do that? Like, there's a scientific way to do it, and it's a numbers game. And if you can understand how the numbers work, and over my 20 years, I've put that together for people. So I just want to see people and help people grow, because I read somewhere in a book, and it was talking about Einstein and people talking about, like, why are we here? Like, why are we on this planet? And Einstein answered it as, we are here to serve. And that kind of that hit me a little differently, because I'm a father, I have kids, and I have a wife, and I'm just always trying to grow. And it's like the best way to grow is to help other people, and that's just another way of saying you're serving. And so I just want to grow, I want to help other people grow. And always take calls, and I always take calls from my agents just to answer questions, to help them with the path. I even have agents that are working with other companies outside the state that are calling me for advice and asking me questions all the time. And I'm totally fine with that. I love that, because I treat real estate is all about relationships. So I treat everybody the same way, because I never know when somebody's with another company or doing something else, when they're going to need something, or they're going to need to come back to me, or they're going to need help from me. And so it's all about the relationships, and it's not about the money.
Yeah. Networking, your reputation, and then treating everybody the same is definitely very important. And you never know when you're going to see that person again, or if they're going to work with your company, or if they're with a competitor, and whoever, especially California, it's a big state, but it's a small world for sure. So, so you were only in real estate in California, not Las Vegas?
No, I have a lot of friends that have I've gotten referrals from in Las Vegas, but I've only been licensed in California. And I romanticized about having a license in California and in Nevada at one point, but
Hmm.
I I have my hands full in California. So
I
if
bet so.
anybody needs a referral for Las Vegas, I got you. But
Gotcha. Okay. So are you still in a stage where you're doing a lot of prospecting and needing data, or are you just kind of referral based at this point, like in your industry, as far as like finding new properties and listings and everything?
So on our personal team, we have thousands of leads, and my
Hmm.
partner, which is my wife, she is actually lead generating every day. She's been in the
Okay.
business about 17 years. She lead generates every day for new business, and I'd say 75% of our business is sphere of influence. About 10 to 15% is online leads, and then the rest is different things from our team and from us that come in. Like, we get random calls from internet leads all the time. Me personally, I'm always constantly reaching out and lead generating to grow the office, to grow the team, to help agents out and do that. So my day typically looks like I'm on the phone with agents and trying to recruit agents to our office and our team. And then my wife, for the 2 to 3 hours every morning consistently, is on the phone, talking to buyers and sellers and trying to get business from that.
Okay. And does your team use any like lead generation tools, or just like you said, like sphere of influence and the internet online
So
leads?
yeah, so I do know people that use, like, they use dialers and they use all these different things, but if you're consistent with your behavior and you try to talk to 10 to 20 people a day consistently, have real conversations with them, that, all that extra stuff is not really that important. So she actually just uses the phone, dials on the phone, one phone call at a time. And she is super, super, you know, dialed in on that and focuses on that every day. Now, I think when you get a larger team and you get enough prospects, that, a lot of those tools can be beneficial. But what I found, it's more the consistency of the behavior than it is the actual action.
Hmm.
That's what I try to tell my agents, because agents come in and they're like, well, I'm going to call expireds. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm like, why don't you talk to the people you already know first? Like, if you have a system, you put everybody in there first, and then you put all that extra stuff in there after that. And then you just have to follow up and be consistent.
Yeah. Consistency is key, and it's just very relationship forming. So if you've been in the industry a while and you already have your way of doing things and it's working, then might as well just stick with that and continue to grow. So what advice would you give any new real estate agents, or maybe someone who is thinking about starting in real estate, because you switched from, police work to this industry? That's kind of a big switch. So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about switching from whatever said to going into real estate?
So I would tell people to remember that they have a process. Like everybody, so like my program, it's called 0 to 6 figures in your first 6 to 12 months. The reason it's not called 0 to 6 figures in 6 months is because everybody has a process. And your process might take you 7 months. Somebody's process might take you 8 months. I know somebody that did 300,000 in their first 12 months. I did over 340,000 in my first 12 months, but everybody has a process. And the number one thing with that process is that if you focus on your sphere of influence and you grow that every day, that's going to be what makes you your hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So I always tell agents, when you start, you have to go slow to go fast. So you have to build your framework, you have to build your infrastructure. And I get agents that jump in and they go, I want to call expireds, I want to door knock, I want to do all these different things. And they end up trying to do 6 or 7 different things. They're not focusing on one thing. And then they end up getting burnt out in 3 to 6 months, when if they just take everybody they know, because this is what I explain to everybody. The average person knows about 300 people. And if you do the math on that, that's in the 6 figures, regardless of what market you're in. And if you take the average amount of people that put them into your database and constantly follow up with them. And so like when an agent joins our office, we encourage them to do that, put them in the database. And then the key is that when you talk to people, when I sit down with an agent, I say, who's your best friend? And they go, oh, John's my best friend. I'll say, okay, how many times could you call John and say, you lead the call with, hey, John, do you want to buy or sell? Like, how many times would John take that phone call before he just started sending you to voicemail because you keep asking him to buy or sell? It's like, you don't talk to your best friend and ask him if he wants to buy or sell. But if John wants to buy or sell, he will absolutely call you because he's your best friend. So I give my agents a script to where the last thing they ever talk about with somebody is actually real estate. They just have to know that you're in real estate. And then I would tell new agents, take your sphere of influence, put them in a database, and constantly follow up with them with a system. You need a system. You need something that's going to talk to, follow up. And I think there's a misunderstanding on what follow up is in the industry. And when someone on my team or someone in my database or someone in my office, I teach them to follow up 40 plus times a year with one person. So one person in my database gets hit over 40 times with different things. And it's very specific and very thought out on exactly how it works, because I mean, if I send you, if I never call you and I just start sending you emails every day, you're just going to unsubscribe or delete me because you're like, why are you spamming me with emails? But if I call you first, we have a real conversation, and then I send you an email, that's a whole different, the email actually has more value.
Hmm.
So most agents, the number one thing that I get when agents join me is like, my sphere of influence, they already bought a house, they already own a house, they're not interested, they have bad credit. There's all these excuses of why your sphere of influence will not give you business when they have no knowledge of how it works. And the number one thing that I'd like to have all new agents know is that it's not about your sphere of influence buying or selling. It's about creating an advocate with that person, to where if somebody they know wants to buy or sell, that they get referred out, and now you're growing your sphere of influence from the people that you know. We had a celebrity contact us because we had somebody in our sphere of influence who rented, had bad credit, never used us, but we had them in the database as if they were the best client you could ever think of. We communicated them like they were the best client, and they talked to this celebrity, and that person ended up contacting us. So it's not always about, is your sphere of influence ready to buy? Can they buy? Will they buy? It's, you have to create that advocate in that person. And if you do that enough, your sphere of influence is going to grow exponentially.
So your sphere of influence is just contacts that you've made over time. It's not necessarily any like data that you get from anywhere.
So it's basically everybody that you know in the world. So when
Okay.
I sit agents down, I ask them, I say, if you had to put a number on it, how many people do you know in the entire world? And I've gotten answers from 50 to 5,000. And then when I get them to focus and dial in, it's always around the 300 mark. And I did not come up with that statistic, but the average person knows about 300 people. In my market, I could do this 150 people and you'd still come out with six figures. But it's like, what do you do with those people? Where do you put them? And how do you make that grow? And it's really not super hard to grow. And what I've done to kind of prove my point, because I will never tell anybody to do something I haven't done, I took out my high school yearbook. I took out my elementary school yearbook. I went to classmates.com and I started trying to reconnect with people that I literally have not spoken to in like 30 years. And I did. And I communicated with them, and they're in my database now, and I'm following up with them, and I'm getting referrals from them. And I think that most people are afraid to talk to people from 30 years ago, depending on how old they are. But I mean, unless you've made somebody homeless, like, you can probably reconnect and repair a relationship that you kind of messed up in the past. And there's enough people out there to where if you don't want to talk to somebody, you don't have to. But there's just so many resources to grow your sphere of influence that if you're patient with the process and you start making the contacts and you start following with people, it's really not super difficult at all.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's what that term means. I thought so, but I wasn't sure. But a lot of agents, when I've been to these conferences, they'll say that they usually start with their sphere of influence and then go from there as far as their prospecting needs go.
Well, if you look at statistics, and I mean, that's kind of like, it's funny because when I was in high school and elementary school, like, I was never a numbers person. I hated math, but now that I'm older and I'm running businesses, like, I love math. And when you look at statistics, like, statistically, most agents in the entire United States, they get their business from their sphere of influence. Like, my office here on the West LA, I go through listings and sales in our team meeting every week. And I go, where did you get that client from? How did you meet that client? 90% of it is sphere of influence. I go to Bakersfield, which is a completely different market. It's literally the same conversation. So in my office, 90% of people who are doing business do it from sphere of influence. And so if you focus and concentrate on that, and then I tell people, like, after you get a solid business, then go to online leads, then go to other things, then go to other sources, because it's all about focus. And once you can focus on one thing and get that locked in, that framework done, then the other ones will just follow suit. And then you just have to change the conversation a little bit.
Cool. So if you could say or give any advice to yourself about 20 years ago when you were getting started in real estate, what would it be? It's like one piece of
That's a
advice
really
or
good question. I think about that all the time. And so the number one thing would be, create your database, put everybody you know in your database, put one person a day that you don't know into your database, and don't make judgment calls on what you think someone can or can't do in business. And I'll illustrate that with a story, is that I was getting gas one day at a Arco station that's, that I go to like, once a week, or in, California, it's really expensive, so like twice a week. And I would see this guy behind the counter. He's the cashier, right? And I see the cashier all the time. We talk, we say hi, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really think much of it. And then one day I go in there and I get some chips and a drink. And there's this lady dressed very nicely, like almost yelling at the cashier. And she was doing it, I think, in Spanish. She was just like, da, 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 just go, like tearing them up. And I'm like, what is going on with that? And I walk back out to the car, I finish pumping my gas. I see her leave and I go back in and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Like, well, that was crazy. Like, did you know her? He's like, oh yeah, she's a real estate agent. She's just trying to get me to sell one of my 5 houses in Palmdale. I was like, what? Wait a second. You're a cashier. You own 5 houses in Palmdale. In my mind, I thought he's a cashier. He doesn't own real estate. He probably rents. And so that was a screwed up mindset on my part, to where I did not realize that it doesn't matter who they are, what they do, or anything, that anybody has the ability to own real estate. And sometimes people have jobs just to have jobs, but they have like, one of the greatest books I've ever read was The Millionaire Next Door. It's like, you just don't know who has what. So you don't discredit anybody. You find everybody, you put them in your database, even if you don't think they'll ever buy or sell. You make that person your best friend, you put them in your database, and you just constantly follow up with them. And that's how your business grows. So I would tell myself, grow your business every day, grow your database every day, and talk to your people every day. It's like literally put people in your database and you talk to your database every day. If you're consistent in that behavior, because I think prospecting, the number one killer of prospecting is lack of consistency. And I try to illustrate it with new agents when they come in, and I tell them, I go, listen, if I hired you to do a job, and I hired you so you can make money and I can make money 9 to 5, you had to be here and do whatever I told you to do for 5 days a week, and you showed up Monday 9 to 5, and then you did not show up Tuesday, and then you did not show up Wednesday, and you showed up Thursday to work half a day, and then you tried to show up Friday, how long would you keep that job? Probably not very long. The problem is that most real estate agents run their business like that, and then they're disappointed with the results that they get. And the only thing they really needed to do is be consistent in their behavior, because you're not going to get a listing every day. You're not going to get a buyer every day. You're not going to hit it out of the park every day. It's not going to be an amazing day every day. But if you show up, you call your people, and you're consistent with that behavior, it's almost impossible to not hit 6 figures and 7 figures respectively moving forward. And that's the one thing that I find that most real estate agents, and when I say most, I say like 75% of real estate agents that I know that are out there, they're just not consistent in their behavior.
Yeah. And wow, that's interesting that he owned 5 houses. But yeah, I mean, some people, they just have a job to have a job, like you said. They just, maybe made a lot of money at one point, and now they just want something to do because they're bored. One of my friend's dads, he sold his business, owns a lot of properties, and now he just does random things, because he's good and new projects and stuff. So yeah, you just never know, somebody's background and where they're coming from.
Well, I mean, if you save your money and you're patient with yourself, like there's a place, like there's almost like the average price point in Bakersfield is $350,000. Like if you take 20% of that, like you can save that if you have a decent job. And if you buy one, and then there's all these books that are out there. These are the Burr method. There's the, flipping, there's Airbnbs. There's so many different methods to where if you just can get one house and be patient and not realize that not want something right now today, and not have this drive-through mentality when it comes to real estate, that if you can just get one and be patient with it, you can build a real estate empire in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, that's true. And patience is what we're missing as a whole, I would say, especially in this country overall. This just with the large amount of media consumption, food consumption,
100%. Well, I
everything.
mean, just to talk about that is that, if you look at some of the major people out there that literally everybody knows that are worth billions of dollars, it's taken people that are worth billions of dollars these days an average of about 20 years to make it. So like if you look at Jeff Bezos, You go back 20 years, like he's sitting at a computer with, a spray painted Amazon thing on the wall. And today he's worth billions of dollars and he only owns like 20 to 30% of the company.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Rock, like he has the biggest selling tequila brand in the world, exponentially different than what Casamigos was. He's like blowing it up. But if you look at him, it took him about 20 years to get there. Like you could almost take anybody and put 20 years and say, listen, you can be a billionaire. You just have to wait 20 years and be patient. Like most people don't have that patience to wait. And that's all you really need to do. Be consistent in your behavior and be patient with your process, because everybody's process is going to be different. Some people, if they're patient, they're going to become a billionaire in 10. Some it's going to take 25. But it's like, I'm 53. And if I would have known this back when I was 20, like my life would be different today. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to spread the word on how people's lives can be different today if they're just patient with their process.
Yeah, that's a really good message. I know I need to hear it. That's definitely much appreciated. All right. Well, we're about the 30-minute mark, but do you have anything else that you would like to add or any advice to give any agents out there or just anybody watching in the community?
My big thing is I want to expand my influence and I want to help people.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to help me, contact me, let me know what I can do to help you. I would love to share my program with people. So can I give out my phone number?
Of course. I was about to ask for the contact information.
So
Yeah.
my best number to reach me at is 818-263-7265. My website for my coaching program is realestatecoachingclub.com. And if you want to go to the podcast that I have is realestatecoachingclubpodcast.com. I do 3 to 4 minute snippets of coaching and help that I want to, because I love podcasts, but it's really hard for me to listen to an hour podcast. So I like little snippets of real estate coaching and help. So the only way I get that out is if people share it and people like it and comment on it and stuff like that. So anybody that wants help or advice or support, there's no charge for it. I just want to help you and create more relationships. So I would love for more people to contact me.
What platform is that on? Is it on YouTube, Spotify?
So it's on Spotify.
Spotify?
Yeah. So it's on all the major things. I'm working on getting it on YouTube right now.
Okay.
Real Estate Coaching Club. I do have some free training on the Real Estate Coaching Club website and on the YouTube channel. So you can find it there as well.
And what is your YouTube handle?
It's at Real Estate Coaching Club.
Okay. All right. And do you have an email or do you prefer to be contacted different ways?
Email is frank@frankbernardo.com.
Okay. All right. And if someone is interested in maybe joining the team, how would they go about doing that?
Shoot me a text message. We'll set up a time to chat and, we'll go through the program and we'll, help you hit your goals.
All right. Well, thank you for being on today. You gave us some really good advice, especially on a Monday, set the week on a good note. But yeah, so thanks for being on today.
Absolutely.
All right. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. I'll talk to you later.